Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 2 of the Magical Herbalism Mentorship, semester 2. I'm your guidance counselor, the Garden Goddess, and today's topic I'm so excited to be talking about. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get started. And so I really want to talk about the elements. And I'm sure you guys are like, why is she so excited about the elements? Gracious. And that is because the elements is something that we all are pretty familiar with. Chances are if you know your zodiac sign, then you know a little bit about the elements because they're in connection to your zodiac. So if you're an Aries, you know you're a fire sign. If you're a Virgo, you know you're an earth sign. If you're a Scorpio like me, then you know you're a water sign. And then if you're an Aquarius, you know you're an air sign. And so we all have had a little bit of history about the elements because if you're in any sort of spiritual practice, then you know that the elements are incorporated in some form or fashion into your practice. And if you're into herbalism like me, whether it's on a professional clinical level, or if you just use herbalism in your cooking or doulaship, then you'll know that the elements have been used to help heal the body. The elements have been used to help diagnose the body, specifically in these Eastern medicine practices such as Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and even in certain Eastern religions. And so for today's class, what we'll be going over is what the elements are and their purpose, how they affect our herbs, how they affect our magic as a whole, and the relationship that the elements have with the crossroads. Now, for the last portion of the relationship between the elements and the crossroads, it is really important that you watched last week's episode, like it's a TV show, last week's lesson on divine direction, because it's really important that you know what the crossroads are and how they assist you and I in our spiritual practices. If you didn't watch that, then if we get to this portion, you may not have a full understanding on the crossroads. So that's really, really important. And so before we get there, we're just going to go over what the elements are as a whole. So, what are the elements? I know that we know that the elements are in connection to air, earth, fire, and water. But the elements as a whole isn't really just an umbrella term, right? And so there's different philosophies and practices that are in connection to the elements. And the elements, they are not just one thing. So when we're talking about the elements in respective to alchemy, alchemy is a really science and philosophical based understanding of how the world was created. And so alchemy and alchemic symbols utilize a chart very similar to like the chemical compound chart, which includes hydrogen, oxygen, gold, nickel, iron, carbon, all these different things that you see in your chemistry classes. That is the elements in respective to alchemy. And then we have the elements in regards to Chinese medicine, which is used to diagnose the body. Chinese medicine, as well as Ayurvedic medicine, which is parts of the elements that are used to diagnose the body so that the doctors or the physicians know if your body is too hot and if your body is too cold. In these traditions, it's very important and imperative that you have a balanced body, a body that is not too hot, not too cold, that is very well balanced and equal, so that you don't end up curating too much mucus in the body, so that you don't develop disease and that you can live a long, prosperous life. And then we have the elements in respective to religion, such as Buddhism and Hinduism. And then we also have the elements in regards to traditional African religions. And then finally, we have the elements in respective to Greek philosophy. So these include the four basic elements of air, earth, fire, and water. And this is one that you and I are probably very familiar with and the most familiar with because we see it online all the time. We talk about it in our spiritual groups and we talk about it even within the African School of Magic. Now, these elements that I'm talking about in regards to the Greek philosophy They date back into the Middle Ages as well deep within the Renaissance age, and very much so influenced European culture. And this includes pre-Socratic times, Aristotle times, Plato times, all these different philosophers that we are well aware of and that we've even heard of in our schools and that we've been taught about. All of these philosophers included the elements, and those were the four elements of air, earth, fire, and water. Now, why is this important? I'm talking about and emphasizing Greek philosophy because in astrology today, this is what we use. We use what the Greeks call classical elements. And classical elements are the four basic elements that we are aware of, which is air, earth, fire, and water. And because of this, because we use the Greeks' philosophy and theories, and because we use the Greeks' classical elements, that is what influenced our astrology. And astrology includes classical elements. And astrology is what we use when it comes to our zodiac signs. Now, there's plenty of different astrologies, and I'm not even going to go over all of them because, child, that's just way too many. But the philosophies and the astrologies that we use is called Western astrology, and that is based off of what we use as Americans. I'm not well aware of what other people in other countries kind of astrology they use, what type of cosmology that they use, but I'm referencing Western astrology. Now, we use classical elements within Western astrology in connection to zodiac signs. So that's why I said kind of earlier, chances are if you know your zodiac sign, then you're going to know what element your zodiac sign is correlated with. And a lot of Western astrology references a lot of European cultures and theories. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's good to know where your knowledge and awareness comes from. Not everything that we have taught you, or not everything that we have learned on the internet and Google, can be dated back to Africa. Some of us, some of the knowledge that we have garnered over time is European or Eurocentric ideals, philosophies, and theories. So, in this particular theory that we're talking about today and that we know about, the elements that we're talking about today are in regards to astrology, and they're in regards to zodiac signs. So, over time, as the Greeks have understood the elements, they found that individual people that they meet carried certain characteristics that the elements have, such as if someone was really hot-headed, someone that was really impatient, someone that was really passionate and driven, these people carried a lot of the fire element with them. Or if someone was very emotional, very psychic, very sensitive and intuitive, they found that these people carried a lot of the water element with them. And at the time when the zodiac signs were born, or birthed and theorized, they weren't as categorized as they were now. And so, in short, in astrology, the elements derived from man's curiosity to understand the planet God created, to understand the human body, and to better understand one another and the things around us. Now, the zodiac signs in astrology does not have the answers to all of the questions that we have about Earth and its creation, but it gives us a better understanding of why things are the way that they are and why things operate in the manner that they operate in this world. And so, as time has gone on, and we're using the Greeks' philosophy once again, as time has gone on and the zodiac signs were birthed and not categorized, the Greeks were able to develop a category for these signs utilizing the elements. And so, as we can see here, the Greeks had broken the zodiac signs up into four different elements, which was air, earth, fire, and water. And that's something that we are aware of right now. So, in these groups, we have our fire signs, earth signs, air signs, and water signs. And through studying and watching people with these characteristics in these zodiacs, the Greeks were able to develop a theory and understanding about each of these groups. And all of these individuals had some things in common, which was that all these individuals were hot in certain areas, dry in certain areas, ardent, heavy, wet, cold. And as we can see now, those terms have now evolved and transmuted into something that is a much more descriptive and even digestible way of understanding. And so at the time, someone that was hot meant that someone that was hot tempered, someone that was dry meant someone that maybe weren't as in touch with their emotions as they should be. Ardent just means passionate or driven, and that was what was described of the fire signs. And then we had the earth signs, which were people that were heavier in a sense, that carried maybe a lot more responsibilities or burdens, or even heavier set. We even had people that were cold in a way, so people that weren't as in touch with their emotions or how they communicate their emotions came off a bit more cold, and then they're dry to a certain extent. Same things with air. They were light in a way, they were hot in a way, they were wet. And then finally, water, which was cold, wet, and soft. Now, as time went on, people were like, what in the hell does that even mean? Like, what does it mean for me to be heavy, cold, and dry? How am I able to understand these elements in the way that you're describing them to me? I need you to do it in a way that is much more digestible and understanding. And so, as time has gone on, this new understanding of the zodiac signs were better understood if they were in connection to seasons. And so, at least for me, I know for sure I'm like moving around because I'm trying to get you guys to see. But connecting these zodiac signs to a season was better understood because what do we know about spring? Spring usually comes after the winter time. Things are still kind of wet, things are still kind of cold, but things are a lot more lighter. You know, there's flowers are blooming around this time. Produce is blooming around this time. Things are warming up. They're not really hot yet. It's still kind of wet. It still rains sometimes, but things are a lot more lighter, a lot more airy, a lot more fresh. Springtime was able to be understood in connection to air signs than this description previously, which was light, hot, and wet, right? And then we had summertime, which was for our fire signs, which were, it was hot, it was goddamn dry. And people were outside more, people were doing things and being a lot more ambitious and passionate around this time. This is when we have like concerts, this is when we have a lot more celebrations, things are moving and there's a lot of energy happening during this time. That was better understood, that fire signs, excuse me, are much more like the summer than saying fire signs were hot, dry, and ardent, right? The same can be said for autumn. Autumn is a time where things are a little more cooler. This is also a time where most people gain a little bit of weight because we're eating a lot more comforting foods. It's a lot colder outside, and so we're getting ready for winter time. Back then, not everyone was able to have an oven and a microwave, and so it was really important that we eat more to sustain ourselves through a colder winter. This is more easily digestible than saying earth signs were heavy, cold, and dry, right? And then finally, we had our water signs, which was associated with winter. Things are going from being really chilly to really cold, right? Things are a lot more wet. Things are a lot more slippery. Things are a lot more soft. You know, a lot of death happened in the wintertime. A lot of hardship also can happen in the wintertime. But also, this is when plants never necessarily died, but the roots went deeper. This was a time of reflection, rejuvenation, of understanding. This is able to be more digestible than saying water signs are cold, wet, and soft, right? And so we found over time, or the Greeks, I can say, found over time that we can find easier ways to understand nature and human beings by just paying attention and seeing what we can associate them with to better understand. We found that everyone is similar in some form or fashion. Everyone has similarities in some form or fashion. So if we can categorize these things better, then we're able to understand human beings in a more simplistic manner. And so that's how the Greeks were able to establish zodiac signs with elements and elements with seasons. That's really how it was all created and how it's also still being used within astrology. Now, how does this affect your herbs? Why does all this matter? Knowing the philosophy of the Greeks and knowing where the elements come from and how they, derived into the seasons, and what does all this mean, right? Well, if you have herbs and you're going to be using them within your magic, it's really important to know that just as you and I are affected by these planetary transits, and how you and I are affected by knowing our zodiac signs and knowing our elements and knowing what season our zodiac is in, right? All these things affect your herbs, because just as you and I take on those characteristics of our zodiac sign and our elements, so do your herbs. Plants are living and breathing spirits. They are alive way more than you can imagine. They can hear you, they can smell you, like they can taste you, they can eat you. Like, plants are alive. They're breathing spirits. And so each of these plants that you decide to use within your magic will take on the characteristics that it was essentially born into. So you will have herbs that are ruled by the fire element. You will have herbs that are ruled by the earth element, the air element, the water element. You will also have herbs that are ruled by certain zodiac signs. And so what this means is, just as me, the garden goddess, as a Scorpio woman that has all these negative and positive traits of a Scorpio, if I decide to use an herb that is ruled by Scorpio, that herb will have those same traits as well. They have those same ways of processing information. They have the same personality as the zodiac sign Scorpio. They have the same sort of evolutionary qualities as a Scorpio does, where sometimes they're destructive, sometimes they're philosophical, sometimes they're evolving, sometimes they're moody, sometimes they're deep. These herbs have those attributes as you and I do. And it's really imperative that you understand that the herbs that you use, this plant up here that I have, which is, I believe, a peace lily, this plant is alive and it can hear me and it can see me. It can see me operating. It can feel me. It can feel my vibration. And it has its own personality, its own really brain, and it can operate as an individual entity. And so your herbs have those same qualities and those same gifts. And so depending on what it's ruled by is the qualities that it takes on. So just as we kind of looked at previously, these qualities that the Greeks, these dry ass, by the way, these are some really short qualities that the Greeks was trying to give us, right? These qualities that the Greeks came about and decided to name in these elements, we now have that within ourselves, and then our herbs also have that. And so when you decide to work with magic and you decide to work with these herbs and create a spell of your own, it's really important that you know what herb you're dealing with, what element is it ruled by, what qualities does it have, right? Is it masculine or is it feminine? And understanding your herb is just like understanding another person. You know, it takes time to get to know these things. It takes time to get to know another person and understand what their likes and dislikes are. And the same goes with your magic. When you're when you really want to up level your herbal magic and get these herbs to work with you and not against you, what helps is just knowing how they operate. All of this is just learning how your herbs are functioning. Essentially, you're just really getting to know these herbs on a personal level so that you know how to work with them and use them to your advantage. And so your herbs are going to take on the characteristics and personality of a zodiac sign, and it could take on the characteristics of an element that it's governed by. So it's up to you to decide if you want to use that aspect of an herb in that way, or if you just want to go simplistic and just use their intention. Now, the Greeks didn't do a good job, right, of explaining the characteristics of elements in respective to people. But fortunately, we got the garden goddess here, and I'm able to break it down for you in a more digestible manner. So, when you are utilizing an herb that is governed by these elements, these are the qualities that they have, right? So, if you have an herb, and I'm going to use one for an example, rosemary. Rosemary is one of my favorite herbs to work with. Oh my God. She is ruled by the fire element, right? And so, what does this mean? When I am working with rosemary for whatever magic I'm deciding to do, whether it's candle magic, whether it's lamp work, whether I'm creating a bath or a spray, these are the qualities that she has. And this is in the manner that I can use her. She's spontaneous, she's reactive, she's assertive, she's passionate, she's courageous, she's creative, impulsive, idealistic, initiative, loyal, adaptable, and enthusiastic. So, in knowing that characteristic about my herb, which is rosemary, that is governed by the fire element, I'm able to understand this is the environment in which she thrives in, something that she can be spontaneous in, something that can help her with exuding passion or courage, something that is helping with creativity. In knowing that this herb has these characteristics, I'm able to better pinpoint what magic to use her for. So if I have magic that I want to do, and it's in respect to money magic, I want to do like a money magic candle to help me make some bread, hundreds of thousands of dollars, then I'm going to want to use an herb that is assertive, that will help me get to the bag, that is courageous, that isn't afraid to help me get to this money, that will help me with my creativity and finding other ways to make money, that is taking initiative. So she'll find different avenues to give me money and find different channels for me to have money flow through. My herb is also adaptable, which means that she can work with anybody. She can work with damn near any herb that I choose to use within this magic if I don't want to just use one herb. And that is really helpful to know because not all herbs get along. Not all herbs are meant to be used for the purpose in which you're trying to use it for. If you want to do money magic, it might not be wise to use jasmine because jasmine is a water herb and she's not into being aggressive. She's not into being enthusiastic and adaptable and courageous and creative. She might not be the person for that job. And so, in understanding your herbs, you're simply just understanding who they are so you know how they function, and how they function can either benefit you or hurt you in the long run. So that is what characteristics that herbs that are ruled by the fire element have. And then we have the air element. So these are herbs that are intellectual. They're detached from their feelings. They're fair, they're social, they're communicative, they're also adaptable, they're action oriented, they're logical, and they're very straightforward. So herbs that are ruled by the air element are great for anything regarding diffusing, a situation, de-escalating a situation. Air element is great if you're going through a heartache and you need to detach from your emotions so that you can have a better viewpoint on why a relationship failed or how you can do better. Air elements, the air element in respect to your herbs are great to use when you're doing business ventures, when you're trying to figure out contracts and you're trying to figure out how to make your business thrive. These herbs are ruled by this element will really help you see the bigger picture. And so it's important because some people they don't know anything about their herbs, and so they're thinking, oh, I should use an herb that's ruled by fire to help me in a situation to de-escalate a relationship that is getting hostile. That might not be a good idea, right? And so the whole point of this is to find the best herb that suits the job that you need done, right? And so when it comes to de-escalating situations, when it comes to being a good communicator, when it comes to things regarding business, when it comes to the mind, having an air element in the picture will help you in that respective situation. And then we have the earth element, right? Earth element, their characteristics are reliable, practical, sensual, pragmatic, materialistic, conservative, grounded in reality, resource driven, dependable, and safe. So when you're going after the material things in life, when you want a new closet and you want new makeup and you want to be able to design your room in a way that you want to, when you want a new car, when you want just the finer things in life or the things that you can touch and taste, having an herb that is governed by the earth element will help you in that way. Even when it comes to money, I always tell people the best elements to work with when you are working with money or you're trying to get money is to have herbs that are ruled by the earth element, because the earth element is about the tangible, the materialism things, and the fire element because you have one that's trying to get the bag, that's assertive and passionate and takes initiative. And then you have one that believes in the practicality, the materialism, that's grounded in reality and will always go after the resources for you, will always find a way to hunt for the proper resources for your success. And so having herbs that are ruled by the earth and respected to getting the materialism that you want in life is really important. And understanding that you have an herb that's governed by earth helps in that understanding of herbalism as a whole. And so herbs that are ruled by the earth, one is dirt. That one's kind of a given. And then we have salt. Salt is ruled by the earth. It's an earth element. And so when you open up your herbalism books, such as this one, which is the complete book of correspondences, when you open up this book and you see these herbs are ruled by, what's a good one? Let's look at a good one. For example, burdock root, right? When you open this book, you'll see all these different characteristics. You'll see that burdock root is ruled by the zodiac sign Libra, Sagittarius, and Taurus, right? And what did we learn about that before? Libra, which is air, Sagittarius, which is fire, and then what was the last one? Earth, Taurus. So this herb in particular, burdock root, which is the example that I'm giving, has all these traits that you can use within your magic. And this is the simpler characteristics that I gave you. So we said it was air, earth, and fire. So that means that this particular herb has all these characteristics that you can use within your magic, right? We also found that burdock root is also ruled by the element water. And so we also found that that means that it also has these characteristics. It has, well, shit, it has all four characteristics. It has all four characteristics that you can use within your work, right? And then it has its own issues, intentions, and powers, and you can see that in the book. They also it's also ruled by the solar system Venus, which we didn't really touch. I think we touched on that last semester, but we won't be touching on that this semester. And then it's ruled by the energy Yin. And if you watched last class when we talked about masculine and feminine energy, Yin is just feminine energy. So does that make sense? When we are looking at these lists of characteristics and intentions and traits that these herbs have, knowing their characteristics, knowing how their personalities are, what zodiac signs rule them, we're able to understand these herbs through a level of its own spiritual entity. These are their own entities with their own personalities and traits, some good and some bad. And this overall helps us with our magic. Now, before we continue on, I really wanted to sort of give this example that you will often hear from other magicians, which is for priests and priestesses. And that is when you are creating a magical spell and you hear the phrase, it's like the spell took on a life of its own. You'll hear that a lot. It's like as soon as I finished making, my lamp or my candle, it's like it became its own entity. It's like it created its own life for itself. And I really want to touch on that because your spell work does. It it does take on a life of itself because you're essentially creating a mini baby with all these different characteristics. When you're choosing herbs that are ruled by certain elements, when you're choosing a fire herb that has an Aries element or an Aries zodiac sign, and then you're choosing an earth based herb that is ruled by maybe Virgo, and then you're telling it to take on these intentions, such as being assertive and passionate or conservative and resource driven. You're basically creating an entity. It's like two people coming together and making a baby and creating you. So you have like my dad and my mom created me. I am a Scorpio that has Aries qualities because I'm majority ruled by fire, and I'm a Virgo rising. So it's like when when you come together and you use these different herbs and you use these different tools and you use these different colors, you're essentially creating like an energetic person, right? And that's why when you hear someone say it's like my magic what took on a life of its own, it really did. Like, honey, you just created an energetic person. You really just created a whole new entity with its own issues, its own personality traits, its own thought processes. And so that is why it's so important that when you are creating something, you're intentional about what you create. You're aware of what qualities this entity or this magic is going to have, because once you let it go, it's gone, baby. And that can be good because it can go out and get you something that you want. Or if you're not careful, you can end up creating something that you don't want, and it ends up fucking up your reality. It may be in a way that you didn't want, right? And so it's really important that you all get this book so that you are able to see the qualities that your herbs have. You can also see it. You can also see those qualities that your herbs have in this book that I had you all um, get. And this, I believe this one was the required reading. These herbs will also tell you their traits. So the gender, the planet it's ruled by, the element that we learned today. So when you're looking at the element in respective to whatever herb that you choose, you can come back to this list that I've created for you guys and know that these are the characteristics that your herbs have. Okay. Now, I'm sure as we're all looking at the list that I gave about air, earth, fire, and water, that all of those traits we have, right? Some of us are more sensitive. Ah, no, I gave it away. Some of us are more spontaneous than others. Some of us are more intellectual or detached than others. Some of us are extraordinarily reliable, or some of us are more emotional. All of those qualities, all of these qualities that we see live inside us. We're not all um, one type of person. Not all of us are just a water based person. Not all of us are just a water element. Not all of us are an earth element. Not all of us are air, and not all of us are fire. You can see even within your own birth chart that even if you were someone that was born as a Taurus, you have all the other elements living inside you. You could be a Taurus with a Scorpio moon and a Virgo rising, right? That's earth, um, water, and earth, right? You may see that you have more fire in your chart as a person that was born as a Scorpio, like me. Or you may find that you were a water sign that is ruled with more earth qualities, you know. You are never just one type of person. So all these gifts and traits live inside of you, and you can use that to your advantage or you can use that to your disadvantage. And why is that? Because when you are doing magic, you have to be as neutral as possible. Why? Why is this important that I'm telling you this? You could be a very emotional person, but if your intention for magic is to not be emotional, then while you are conducting the magic, you cannot be emotional. If you are trying to manifest money, and while you're conducting your magic, meaning while you're dressing your candle, while you're praying over your candle, while you're praying and enchanting your herbs, if your goal for doing this magic is to make money, and then all you're thinking about is your ex-boyfriend while you're doing this work, and you're getting emotional and you're thinking about the heartbreak and you're thinking about how this man did you wrong, that is going to affect your work. So you can have all these elements live inside you. You could be someone that's spontaneous and hard-headed and passionate. You could be someone that is resource driven and someone that is really grounded in reality. You could be someone that's intuitive and emotional. You can have all these different traits that live inside you, and they do, because you're a human being and you're an extension of God. So you have all these different traits. You have a whole universe inside of yourself. But when you are doing work, when you are doing spiritual work, it is important that you come into it with one goal in mind and you're focused on that goal that entire time. So when you're doing magic, and we kind of talk about this when it comes to rituals, especially if you go and you are a student of the African School of Magic, we always tell you you have to embody what it is that you're feeling. So while you're doing a candle magic ritual, it's important that you listen to music that are in connection to the ritual that you're doing. So if you are doing a money magic ritual with your friends, we always kind of say play a playlist that is only talking about money, repeat affirmations that are only talking about money, associate a smell that is in respect to money, right? We're trying to train you to get your mind in the vibration of what it is that you want, because when you are not connected to your work, when you're thinking about something else while you're doing work and it's not um, in correlation with one another, it will mess up the direction of your work, right? It's kind of like giving birth to a child with issues. And we all got issues, right? We all have some sort of shadow work we have to do because our parents passed on some generational curses or traumas, right? Everyone has it. But for you, you have the opportunity when you're doing magic every day or every other day or every week or every month, that when you're getting ready to give birth to this spell work, when you're getting ready to give birth to this new entity that's going to take on a life of its own, because it will, that you don't end up sending unintentionally energy to this herb or to this herb. You don't end up unintentionally sending energies and thought processes and mindsets and beliefs to this spell work so that once it's birthed, they don't know really what to do, right? So when you are creating spell work, once again, be sure that when you're creating it, and I'm not saying when you're thinking about the idea of it, I'm saying when you have your hands in the dirt and you are dressing the candle, when you are writing on the candle, when you are praying over the herbs, that your mind is present with it, that your body is present with it, that your spirit is connected to the work. Okay. That is so important. And no one, I don't really feel like anyone talks about that enough. You have to be really present in your work, because if you're not, your work doesn't have direction. Your work doesn't know what to do. You've passed on all these different belief systems, all these different things that you're thinking about. You're supposed to be doing magic about money and you're thinking about your man while you're lighting this candle. It's going to be like, what? Like, I thought my purpose was to get money and all I'm thinking about is love. Where where is this energy going? What am I going to do? And so that is super important. I really wanted to talk about that. um and the final thing I want to talk about in regards to your magic, um nothing, and this is like just a side note outside of the elements, nothing you do comes without sacrifice. So whenever you're doing magic, you need to sacrifice something. Did you know that? You need to sacrifice something. You need to give up something, right? Because you need to make room for this new energy to come in. You need to make room for prosperity to come in. You need to make room for whatever it is that you're asking. And so you can sacrifice little things. So while I'm doing this candle magic ritual, I need to sacrifice not being on Instagram. While I'm doing this ritual or while I'm doing this magic, I don't need to be eating fast food. It's the little things, but you need to sacrifice something when it comes to your magic. And that's in general. If you want money, you got to get a job and you're sacrificing your time. You're giving up your body for this certain amount of time so that you can get this check. Nothing in this lifetime comes without sacrifice. Remember that when you're doing work. Now, here's a review. We talked about last week the importance of divine direction and how each of these directions are in correlation to genders. We found out that north was the positive feminine energy, south was the negative feminine energy, east was positive masculine energy, and west was negative masculine energy. And I had said that these directions that are in connection to gender and polarity are also in connection to the elements. So I wasn't going to leave y'all hanging. I am going to talk about it. And I just wanted to show you what direction that each of these elements are ruled by. And so that's what we're going to be talking about right now. So when it comes to north, which is the positive feminine energy, is governed by the earth element. Okay. South, which is governed by the negative feminine energy, is fire. East, which is positive, is that right? I guess it is, which is positive masculine energy, is air. And then west, which is negative masculine energy, is water. Does that mean that because it is in a negative aspect of these genders, that means that these things are negative things? No, not necessarily. It's saying that these directions have these aspects to them. So you can either use them or lose them. You can either use it in a beneficial way or you can use it in a non-beneficial way. So not everything that you use is going to take on the qualities that they have. I want to explain this in a way that you can understand. just because this is ruled by air doesn't mean it's going to take on all the air element qualities. It just it has them available for you to use, but you don't necessarily have to use them, right? Just because south, which is I think it's the negative feminine um energy, just because it has a fire element doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use them, but you can use them to your benefit or detriment, right? And so the directions also are in connection to the elements. So the crossroads got everything, child. It got gender, polarity, it got your ancestors there, it got your Loa, it got your Orisha, and then it got your elements, right? It has probably everything that you need, right? So just because these directions have these things available doesn't necessarily mean you have to use them, but it's important to know that you can. And so, how I like to use the elements in respective to the crossroads is particularly when I'm trying to dispose of my work. Now, magic is important in two aspects: how you perform it and then how you dispose of it. So, we talked about how it's important that when you are doing magic and conducting magic and you're addressing your candles and you're praying and doing all these things, that your mindset is present with the work. And then how you dispose of it matters. Where you dispose of your work matters. And so I live in a location that makes it difficult to reach these different locations that I would like to. So, such as sometimes, priests or priestesses will tell you you need to dispose of your work at the river, or you need to dispose of your work at an ocean. Sometimes I have a hard time getting to an ocean. And so what I like to do is I will I will dispose of my work at the crossroads, since that's something that is very easily accessible. And then I'll choose an element that is in connection to the location that I was originally supposed to have it in. So since I couldn't get to an ocean or I couldn't get to a river, I'll go to the crossroads and then I'll drop it off at the side of the crossroads that is ruled by water. That's just been so easy for me. Honestly, it's been a game changer. Or if I need to drop something off at a location, maybe it's like for a marriage, right? I'm doing love magic and I needed to bury my work at a wedding facility, where people get married, like a chapel, and I wasn't able to get to a chapel. So, how I'm able to do that is I'll just go to the crossroads and I'll drop it off at the area in the crossroads that's ruled by earth, which is things that matter in the physical. Marriage is a contract. It's something that I'm trying to have that is long lasting, something that is resource driven. So I'll drop it off in an area of the crossroads that's ruled by earth. Or if I'm doing money magic and I don't want to drop it off at the bank or dispose of my work at the bank, because sometimes you'll be told you need to dispose of your work at a bank. If you don't got dirt around your bank, what you can do is you can go to the crossroads and drop it off at an area in the crossroads that's governed by earth, which is north, right? Or let's say you have a business venture and trying to be sure that you show up for your business meetings with a clear mind and you're able to communicate your ideas so that you can get investors. Then I'll go and drop off my magic at the area in the crossroads that's ruled by the air element. And those are the characteristics that the air element has. Or if I'm trying to be creative and I'm trying to get out of this funk and I'm trying to be more passionate and driven in life, or even if I'm doing money magic too, I might drop it off at the area of the crossroads that's ruled by the fire element. So these are just little ways that you can use the crossroads in different ways. You can use the crossroads for the gender aspects. You can use the crossroads for the polarity aspects. You can use the crossroads for the elemental aspects. And if all else fails, you can just use the crossroads in general to dispose of your work because it's so damn powerful. And so I really wanted to touch on that from last class, because this is another aspect that you can use the crossroads in your magic. And it is really wonderful and it's really helpful. And it's honestly been a game changer because I don't really ever have to worry about how to dispose of my work or where to dispose my work at, because the crossroads is so accessible and so easy to get to no matter where I am. If I'm in the country, out of the country, if I'm in a different state, or I'm in my home state, then this will always be available for me and it will always be available for you. Now homework. Class is done. Woo! Let's stretch it out. That was cool, huh? All right. So for this week, we're going to be conducting an elemental ritual, and it's just going to be for you. We all aren't going to be doing the same ritual. We're just going to be doing something for ourselves and what we need in our lives. And so I want you to reflect on your life today and see what aspect of your life needs a little assistance. Maybe you're someone that is looking for a job right now. If you're looking for a job right now or you need more money, then working with the fire element or the earth element will be helpful. Maybe you're someone that needs clarity in your life, and so working with the air element will be helpful to you. If you're someone that is trying to have more understanding, or if you're trying to enhance your psychic gifts, or you're just trying to learn how to develop your discernment, working with the water element will be helpful. But what aspect in your life is in need of assistance? And depending on what aspect that you need help in, you will choose an element that is in correspondence to helping you fill that area back up with abundance and goodness, or I suppose not, but it's always better just to work with something that's going to be helpful to you. So you're going to get a 7-day white candle because white is neutral. It will work with whatever you decide to choose. And then you'll choose 2 herbs that are from your today's herbal health that will help you in a medicinal way or a magical way. So I should have said today's herbal health book, or you can use your Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs book, depending on what herbs you want to use. But you can use your today's herbal health book, or you can use your Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs. You'll choose 2 herbs from that will correspond with assisting you in whatever problem that you have. You'll also use herbs that correspond to the element you want to work with. So if you're choosing to work with the fire element, it's good to have an herb that also has the fire element so that you can get used to what that feels like. And then you're going to incorporate the following into your intentions in your enchanting process. You'll incorporate gender, you'll incorporate the intentions, the polarities, the elements that we learned today, as well as direction. Use that however you want to use it, but you must present that to me in our group chat so that I can see that you know how to use all of these different characteristics that you're learning about. Now, all of whatever element you decide to work with, it's going to be balanced because we're using the color white, and white is very neutral. It's a very grounding color. So no matter what you do, you can't fuck it up because you're working with white as well as whatever element. The white will balance out whatever element you're trying to use. So you're good. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing. I hope that was helpful for you all. That was a lot of information. Please ask any and all questions that you have. We will be having a live class so that we can do our homework together and I can further answer any other questions that you have. I hope you all enjoyed today's class. I love you dearly, and I will catch you on the next one. Talk soon.